guys, ranked just dropped in Pokemon Pocket, and today we're going to do a tier list on the best decks to climb to Master Ball during the Shining Revelry format for Pokemon Pocket ranked. So let's go. So let's get straight into this tier list that I made using that tiermaker.com. And we have, let's see, I think 6, 12, 18, 21 decks that we're going to cover today, some of which we'll just touch base on, and the ones that I really dive into, you'll be able to find a deck list here below me. So first off, I do want to actually talk about Darkrai Weavile, which won the second to last, or say Pokemon Pocket ranked, Pokemon Pocket tournament during Triumphant Light. I think actually, while this deck may not put out as much damage as some other ones, just the speed of Weavile and Darkrai together, especially with that combo with attaching your energy to Darkrai and then donning it up to your just evolved Weavile if you've gone first, and doing, 90 damage on your turn 2 is absolutely insane. And that type of speed that can really close and end a game just as fast as it begins is going to be so strong in setting up your climb in the ranked battle system. So this is my first deck that I'm talking about, and I'm immediately going to put it into A tier. I think running some of these really fast decks helps you really just climb up the ladder as fast as possible. Especially when you're getting to Master Ball, sometimes the most important thing is to have fast games. And so I'm going to move a couple other decks up here as well. And I'm going to include Articuno T18 in this and Palkia T18. There's so many strong supporters now. So these two decks are really consistent at this point. Maybe not as consistent as some of those mid-range tier decks, but they have that same ability to be super, super fast. And by having fast games, you find out if you win or you lose, way quicker than if you're doing 13, 20 turn games. So Darkrai, Weavile, Articuno EX, Palkia EX, these are going to be some of my first decks that I'm going to put in A tier. I'll be honest, I think I might have more A tiers than anything else, so just bear with me here. My next deck I'm going to pick might be Arceus Carnivine. I think this is obviously, it can put out some early fast damage, right, with Arceus Carnivine, Rotom in there as well. And I think it has a lot of different scope with your ability to play some of those different one-point attackers. So I'm going to put it in B, but honestly, it's just not putting out the type of damage that some of these other decks that we're going to talk about really do. The next deck I want to talk about is one that I really mentioned during my set review. And there's something I didn't think about. We're going to talk about this Clodsire Giraffe deck. This runs one Darkrai now as well. It's a really interesting deck. It's really fun. But the problem is Arceus is just so prevalent in the meta. And when it's not Arceus, there's a Druddigon in the deck. So I think, honestly, the deck that I had really, really wanted to do well is going to be C tier. It's going to be C tier. I admit my mistake. But the poison that Clodsire lies on, it just doesn't affect Darkrai. And then when you already get that early 20 damage on it, putting it to 140, it's just in range of so many different attackers with that red, and then those 130 attacks, be it Giratina EX, Arceus EX, and it's kind of hard to set up sometimes between, poison and attacks like that. So definitely going to be C tier this time. Very sad to see there. My next one I'm going to talk about is Rampardos Lucario, and this is the first deck that I actually started playing when I started ranked yesterday. I love MST's list, and that's the list that I ran. I'm just going to say that. He won the last tournament of Triumphant Light for the Pokemon Pocket Weekly. But the problem is with this list is we're running Hitmonchan, and it's because of its synergy with Lucario and Sudowoodo. But the problem is a lot of the top decks, and I'm going to mention this deck later, are running Druddigon, and you just don't have any chance into Druddigon. So I'm going to put Rampardos as B tier, because a lot of times when I go against what I do believe is the best deck of the format, I can't do anything except hope that they misplay. If they just stay behind that Drudicon, they should just be sitting there attaching that Darkrai, you know, putting in that ping damage, and that's all they would really need to do. But half the time, those same players, you know, they retreat, they get bored of sitting behind the Drudicon. So I put it in B tier, but it's got a lot of problems still. The next one I guess I'll mention is actually the one that I've still been running on ladder, and that's going to be Gallade Hitmonlee. I think I might put this, especially like once you get Great Ball, above the Darkrai Reviles, the Articuno EXs, and obviously those different T18s. Gallade EX and Hitmonlee. I'm going to put the list down below. I actually been running this pretty extensively, got me all through Great Ball. I'm using Sararu's list, who is a pretty well-known Japanese player. He shared this list with me, and I'm going to be putting out a YouTube video later on how to run this deck. But Gallade actually has a great matchup into a lot of these different decks, and the most difficulty it has is into like Giratina EX and Pokemon like that, where it can swing for 150, and with red, it still knocks out the Gallade. And that's a huge problem, but because you have that Hitmonlee that you can hide behind and really start sniping that Giratina behind whatever tank is in front of it, I think Gallade is really, really strong, and I wouldn't be surprised to see it not only do well in ranked, but in some of these different tournaments as well. I actually do want to talk about what I count as the S tier deck right now, and it's going to be this Giratina Darkrai list. This is with 2 Drudicons, so you hide behind the Drudicons while you power up the Giratina and the Darkrai, and honestly, you need the deck you're against needs some type of bench snipe to do anything about it. It's a super, super strong deck. It's really hard to beat, especially when you're running capes to protect the Darkrai. Giratina can be swinging for 170 against some Pokemon. This is just such an impressive deck. And with that, I guess I'll talk about an old favorite that a lot of people felt similarly towards during Space Time Smackdown, and that's going to be Executor EX Celebi. I'm going to be honest, Executor is consistent, but Celebi just isn't anymore. And I feel like too many decks are able to do that 130 that knocks out Celebi. So I'm going to put that in C tier as well. Just not the deck that I wanted it to be. And honestly, we saw it kind of get phased out later as well. The next I might mention is going to be Palkia EX and Palkia Origin Form with Manaphy to power them up. It still seems pretty strong, and obviously being able to use one-pointers is really nice. Palkia Origin Form can sometimes one-shot Drudicons. Palkia EX obviously knocks out basically every Pokemon, especially once you are using red. Though obviously there's like some 180s that it doesn't just like one-shot, but it sets up for a really nice stance. And with that, I will also add the Gyarados Origin Form. I almost want to put this in A, but I'm going to keep it in B as well, because sometimes you just miss with this deck, and it's if you miss, or they power up faster than you can, there's really nothing you can do. Next, we can talk about Snorlax Magnezone. We saw some play of it in Top 64 versus Pokémon Pocket Weekly, but I don't know if I like it as much as I did. 100 is not really enough. Magnezone is... I think Magnezone is still a really strong card, actually. And you'll see that in how I present this. But I think this one is going to be potentially in C tier as well. There's so many supporters you want to run now that aren't Berry. You need double Berry in this list. I just don't think it's strong enough anymore for it to be even B tier. That being said, I think C tier sometimes you can still, you know, pull off some wins with it, but it's just not going to be the consistent deck that gets you to climb up the ladder and get to the Master Ball that you want, especially at the beginning of the season where everyone's a little bit more shrunk together, you know? Next, I want to say Arceus Dialga, which was like one of the best ones. But the truth is, now this list sometimes includes Giratina. And so there's some of them still are playing Mew EX, and I think there's some reasons for it, right? But I think this one might, like the normal Dialga Arceus with Mew EX, is like at the bottom of A tier. And then Arceus EX Dialga with the Giratina, I almost think is either top of A or S tier as well. And I feel like I'm not putting enough S tier. So I might put this S tier just because I think it's really strong. It's just like so nice to set up, but still you have to get those energies on the Giratina by having some turns that just pass. That being said, you just have to pass some turns with Dialga as well, so it has some synergy there. It's just some of these decks, they're really, really consistent. They're really hard to deal with, and like, what are you supposed to do sometimes? That being said, what are you supposed to do? Well, let me tell you what you might do, and I think that's going to be Charizard. Yeah. And let me warn, not the Stoke Charizard. I'm talking about Genetic Apex Charizard. Genetic Apex Charizard, I actually think, is really strong in this meta. It one-shots every single Pokemon, and with Iono, it is able to be even more consistent. Honestly, I think if Iono had been in Genetic Apex, Charizard would have been the S tier of the entire set. But it is still, you know, a stage 2. I'm not sure. This could almost be a S tier, but I'm going to put it right below Gallade, just because people still need to test out the deck. Maybe there's techs that protect against it, things like that. I do want to warn, right, this tier list, it's day 2 of ranked, so there's a lot of movement that can still happen within it. So let's get into the next one, and this is a really cool one that I had no thought of before ranked came out, and it's Executor Meowscarada. And when I was saying earlier, I still think Executor is super consistent. There's not many Pokemon that can one-hit knock it out. And Meowscarada can do like 130 damage. And it does 150 if it's against some of those grass weakness Pokemon. It's really strong against a lot of EXs, and as you can see on this board, it's a very EX heavy meta. I think I would put this right above Articuno EX for ranked specifically. Yeah, I think that's where I would put that. Which one should we do next? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Leafeon Celebi. It was an interesting deck for a while. I think I'm debating if I want to put this as B or C tier. Debating if I want to put this B or C tier right now. I think it might be B tier for me. Honestly, I think Palkia might be above Gyarados. I just hate the Gyarados form. Maybe it's just my personal opinion. But yeah, I'm going to put Leafeon, I think, above the Origin forms. It's, you know, it's an Iridale list. It's interesting. I just don't know if it's strong enough to deal with some of these decks. Doing 70 each turn is just not enough. Magnezone Darkrai. I've actually heard some people putting Giratina in this and it being really strong as well, so you can include this with Giratina. I'm going to move this up here just because of consistency. But I'm going to put this like in A. Either top, like bottom of A or top of B is my opinion here. It's not the best deck to me. Is Drudagon's so nice, right? I'll put it top of B. I'll put it top of B. I also think Arceus Crobat, like with Darkrai, still a really strong deck, like to some extent. I just don't think it's the correct build to run in ladder all the time, which is all the Pokemon, but yeah, I mean, I stopped seeing it after Pokeball for a while, so I almost actually want to put this bottom of B tier. Palkia EX and Starmie EX. I think Starmie EX is super aggro, so it can be useful to climb. But I'm going to put it, it's like mid B in my opinion. Like mid B in my opinion. I don't even know if I've seen it actually in rank. But I think it could have some use. Maybe there's just some stronger water Pokemon than it. And Arceus Greninja. I'll put it like top of B. Yeah, I think this is gonna be... I think my S and A tier are ordered. B and C not as much ordered, just heads up. I do want to say this tier list is at the beginning of the ranked season. A lot of things could still happen. There's a couple decks that I think that are still in movement, how strong they are, especially between Gallade, Charizard. And maybe we'll see some different counters come up for those Giratina decks. Tell me what you think down below in the comments about the tier list, or what decks you're feeling are really strong and ranked. Let me know if any of these deck lists help. But yeah, guys, I think that's going to be my tier list for today. If you have any questions, leave them below. But don't forget to like the video, comment what you think, and subscribe to the channel. I'll see you soon for a Gallade deck list. Bye-bye!